Hey everyone, and thanks for taking the time to check out this video. For today's brief presentation, I'm going to be reviewing the Mossberg 500 Retrograde. In my case, I have the Retrograde Field model with a 28-inch barrel, an American-made shotgun that I've had my eye on for several years now and recently got the opportunity to add to my collection. Bottom line up front, I think this is a functionally solid shotgun that unfortunately fails to deliver on its main selling point, which is its retro appeal. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely a solid option that I think could earn its place in many respectable gun collections. However, my chief criticism is that I think it is unlikely to impress these specific consumers to whom it is most directly advertised. I'll explain why I think that in just a moment, but first let's rattle off the obligatory YouTube review disclaimers. I have zero financial relationship with Mossberg or any of their competitors, and I am receiving no compensation from any party for making this review. I purchased the shotgun through normal channels using my own hard-earned money, and the opinions and impressions I have formed regarding the shotgun are indeed those of a regular consumer. With that out of the way, let's hit the meat of this video. In order for me to explain why I was disappointed by the Mossberg 500 Retrograde, I think it would help to explain why I bought it in the first place. Looking back, I feel a little silly, but the truth is I fell for the marketing on this one. This is a $500 shotgun, and the thing is, you don't need to spend $500 to get a solid pump gun. Anywhere that stocks a 500 Retrograde will almost certainly also stock the Mexican-made Maverick 88, which essentially clones the performance of this shotgun for less than half the price. That should be old news, by the way. Pretty much everyone at this point recognizes that the Maverick is basically just a Mossberg wearing a sombrero. Now, that doesn't mean the Maverick 88 is for everyone. Maybe you want more aftermarket support, wooden furniture, a Tang safety, or better yet, you just prefer to buy an American-made product. I applaud you for that, by the way. Well, that's when you suck it up and you pay $400 or so for a regular Mossberg 500. You've got tons of options at that price point. You can get everything from a pistol grip to a checkered wood stock, various chamberings, barrel lengths. Heck, you can even get a combo package for well under $500. So the question, of course, is why would you pay $500 for the Retrograde, given that there is such a compelling range of functionally equivalent products at better price points? Well, if you're like me, the answer to that question is obvious: nostalgia. The whole point of the Retrograde line is that it's supposed to be an homage to those classic pump guns on which Mossberg built their brand. You don't pay $500 because you think you're going to get a more consistent pattern, a smoother action, or even necessarily an objectively better gun. You pay $500 because you miss the pride of picking up a well-made American firearm. You pay $500 because you want racking that shotgun to transport you, even if just for a moment, to the front seat of a San Francisco squad car in the 1970s. You pay $500 because you want a shotgun that blends in with a beat-up Ford, a flannel shirt, and a smiling dog wearing a bandana. All right, now I'm literally just describing Mossberg's promotional material, but the point is that the Retrograde is supposed to make you feel something. It's a new production gun marketed towards the CNR crowd, and I'm absolutely a sucker for that kind of thing, so that's why I bought it. Unfortunately, there's a problem with that logic, and once again, I'm almost embarrassed to admit how obvious that problem is in retrospect. Pardon the play on words, retrospect. One of the critical ingredients in the success of retro firearm lines, whether it be Brownell's retro AR line or PSA's recent dive into reproduction AKs, is that the original product is no longer available at a competitive price point. And that's just not the case with classic American pump guns. And to highlight that point, I will be showing off my other recent acquisition, which is this 1980 police surplus Remington 870 Wingmaster I picked up on the primary market, where it is still available at time of filming, for $219. Now, the goal here isn't to break down the pros and cons of the 870 versus the 500, but the point is that if you are attracted to the idea of retrograde shotguns from the golden era of American shotgun manufacturing, they are still out there. And unless you care about them being brand new in the box or something, you can get them for way less than a retrograde. And now with this reference point close at hand, I think we can start to clearly appreciate the biggest problem with the Mossberg Retrograde, which is that it really just doesn't compare all that favorably to the shotguns it's designed to emulate, not just in terms of price, but in terms of quality. Now, once again, before I start ripping on this shotgun, please understand that this is a solid shotgun. And while I regret buying the Mossberg 500 Retrograde specifically, I don't regret buying a modern Mossberg. I will take this into the field. I will take this on the Sporting Clays course, and I have no doubt it's going to serve me well. The point is that when I paid $100 extra, or $100 at least extra for this shotgun, I was expecting a level of quality and soul that it really didn't deliver on, and I wish I just had that extra $100 back. So now let's go budget tip and run through all of the little details I think Mossberg missed on this shotgun. Right off the bat is going to be the butt pad. It's just not perfectly aligned, and it should be, or it should be closer than it is. On the left side, we've got a little rubber jutting out past the wood, and on the right side, we've got a little wood jutting out past the rubber. It's almost like if you just moved it over, it'd be perfect. This is such a simple thing, and it doesn't have any functional consequence, but it makes the weapon feel cheap and careless. And I didn't pay $100 extra for the Retrograde because I expected it to feel cheap and careless. Again, I bought the Retrograde because I wanted to LARP as a grumpy 70-year-old Wyoming rancher. Moving forward to the wood itself now, spoiler alert, this is really the only thing which sets the Retrograde apart from any other off-the-rack new production Mossberg 500. And the problem here is I don't think the wood lives up to the hype. It certainly doesn't carry that $100 price tag on its own. This wood looks great in some of the pictures, but when it's right in front of me, I'm sorry, I just don't see it. What's the point of having a walnut stock if it doesn't look and feel like walnut? Because honestly, in most lighting, this stock looks like brown spray paint on fiberboard to me. I'm being a little harsh here, I know. It's not like I was expecting a hand-rubbed oil finish on high-grade walnut, but come on, guys, I was expecting a little bit of grain here. When I inspect it under bright light, I can see that there is indeed a decent piece of wood under there, but the cheap finish and pressed checkering are doing it absolutely no favors. In the end, it basically has the effect of looking and feeling like any other normal Mossberg 500 stock with a darker stain, a stain which apparently costs about $25 per fluid ounce. Moving forward to where the stock meets the action, again, we have minor but very real fitment issues that just get in the way of me using this shotgun as a prop to imagine I live in an industrialized nation. Everything easily could have been made to fit perfectly, but the trigger assembly notch wasn't quite cut in the center, which has the effect of making the entire stock feel like it's twisted 1 or 2 degrees counterclockwise, which it is. They were super close here, credit where it's due, but the thing with shotguns is that close only counts downrange of the muzzle, not behind it. Next up, the set screws of the drilled and tapped receiver. One of them is buggered up, straight out of the box. Come on, guys, that's my job. All jokes aside, though, I really do get a kick out of seeing all of the little scars and errors I've put on so many of my different firearms. I use them as a fond reminder that I can be an impatient idiot and that being an impatient idiot has consequences. In this case, however, this buggered up screw is not a fond reminder for me. It's a fond reminder of some impatient idiot who works at Mossberg, and that's slightly less appealing to me. Moving on to the fore end now, and here's where we really get to the heart of what you get for your extra $100 when you buy a Mossberg 500 Retrograde. This is it, guys. Marketing aside, $500 gets you a regular Mossberg 500 with a dark tinted corncob style forend. Is it cool? Yeah, it's kind of cool. If I catch it out of the corner of my eye, I get excited for a second. That said, it's by no means amazing, and it honestly doesn't feel that great in my hand, so I certainly would not consider this an acceptable added value for $100. Running up on top now, the rib. Listen, I'm sure this is good enough for government work, but this rib is not perfectly straight or level. On close inspection, I can't find exactly what's wrong with it, but the human eye is very good at instinctively recognizing perfectly straight surfaces, and this isn't that. I can see that immediately when I pull it up to my eye. As long as we're here as well, I hate the angular cuts on the rear bead sight, because depending on where the light is coming from, this has the effect on my eyes of making me think that the center of the bead is to the right or left of where it actually is, because one side of the bead is reflecting more light than the other side of the bead, or it's uneven at least. You don't have that issue with a round bead, so not a huge deal, but I don't love that at all. And the last thing I'll say here is going to have to do with the intangible character and soul of this shotgun, or perhaps the absence of such traits. I recently got a new mic, and I think this will be a great tool in conveying what I'm talking about here. So let's listen to this retrograde cycle. And listen to the fire and pin drop. Now the surplus 870 cycling. And the fire and pin drop. I hope the mic picks that up. There's that lingering ring of steel right there. You get the same thing with the fire and pin dropping. It hangs in the air for a moment. You don't get that with this. There's nothing hanging in the air. And you certainly don't get that with this. It sounds like dropping a Happy Meal toy on a yoga mat. Meanwhile, this sounds like an arrow hitting chainmail and unsheathing Excalibur. No comparison. This feels like an American shotgun I can be proud of. This feels slightly different than that. That's about it, guys. I'm sure for some of you this was obvious from the get-go, but to be honest, I let myself get swept up in the advertising hype, and in the end, I got let down as a result. So just in case anyone out there is in the same situation I was and is potentially going to make this same mistake, not to say that buying the shotgun is a mistake, but if you buy it expecting it to be more than it is, it certainly could be a mistake. There is no magic or special sauce to the Mossberg 500 Retrograde. It is a Mossberg 500 built no more carefully than any other modern Mossberg. For the extra $100 you spend, you will get a corncob profile forend, cheap-looking dark furniture stain, and allegedly a couple of decent pieces of walnut. But that's pretty hard to appreciate given that the aforementioned dark stain is about as flattering as putting a tube top on a walrus. So where does that leave us? All jokes and complaints aside, this is not at all a bad gun. Would I rather have this than a regular woodstock Mossberg 500? I guess so. I'm kind of in between. I do prefer the aesthetic appeal of the corncob forend. It does look better, even if it doesn't look as good as I expected it to look. However, if I'm being completely honest, I also prefer the ergonomics of the regular wooden Mossberg 500 forend. So I'm kind of in between there. And once you factor in that one is $100 more expensive than the other, absolutely not. If I could go back, I would be perfectly happy with a regular Mossberg 500 for $400, and I would spend that $100 on ammunition. I think what it comes down to is this. If you want a Mossberg 500, more power to you. It's a good gun, and for all the critiques I've given it today, especially in comparison to this 40-year-old Remington, I think that if you want a new production American-made shotgun today, the Mossberg is a better option than the new production 870. That said, my advice if you do want to buy a new production Mossberg 500 is pick the one that meets your utilitarian standards. If you want a classic shotgun that's going to give you a star-spangled warm and fuzzy, buy a classic shotgun, not a modern shotgun pretending to be a classic shotgun. This was literally half the price, and it absolutely drips with the nostalgia and craftsmanship that I foolishly expected from the Mossberg 500 Retrograde. So that's where I'm at. I do plan to keep this gun and enjoy it, and maybe I'll even use it enough that it gets a little bit of soul and character on its own. But if I could go back, I never would have bothered with the Retrograde in the first place. I would have just bought a base model, or better yet, another surplus gun with a 28-inch barrel. So before I wrap up, let's try to put a neat little bow on this whole review. Mossberg advertises their Retrograde line as a throwback to the look of their first tactical pumps, and in their defense, that's exactly what I got from mine. It's a throwback to the look. If you squint at this shotgun in the right lighting from the right distance, you can totally see what they were going for. If, however, you feel inclined to pick it up, you will quickly and perhaps rudely be reminded that no matter how much it might look like a classic American pump gun, it is not built like a classic American pump gun, and that might be a little disappointing for exactly the sort of person who got excited by this product in the first place. All right, guys, and that's the video. As always, if you found this video to be worth your time, perhaps it helped inform a buying decision that you have upcoming, I would greatly appreciate it if you could let me know by doing the YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe. That's what motivates me to make more videos. Other than that, thanks so much for taking the time to check out this video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.